FIFA is preparing the largest sporting event in human history. 48 nations, 3 countries, 16 cities, 104 games. A tournament so big it stretches across a combined landmass larger than the entire continent of Europe. FIFA is calling it the pinnacle of world football. Broadcasters are calling it the golden era of the sport. And ticket sales have already broken every record ever set at a World Cup. So if you're wondering who the hell is actually funding the largest World Cup in history, well, the answer is you. Because within a few weeks of that opening ceremony, your passion for football is going to be converted into the most profitable product FIFA has ever built, whether you like it or not. And that's because FIFA quietly rewrote the rules of the tournament specifically to make that happen. But before we get to that, you need to understand why this all matters. Because the only way a 48-team World Cup makes any sense is if the tournament is actually what FIFA is telling you it is. But it's not. Here's what the official story looks like. The World Cup used to have 32 teams. FIFA expanded it to 48 for 2026. More nations represented, more stories told, more football played. If you ask most football fans what the 2026 World Cup is, they'll say it's history. They'll say it's the USA finally hosting again for the first time since 1994. They'll say it's Canada's first ever World Cup. They'll say it's the most inclusive tournament ever made. And on paper, it looks exactly like that. But there's a number FIFA doesn't put in the press release. And once you see it, the whole story changes. Because the 2026 World Cup isn't one tournament. It's actually 3 different products stacked on top of each other. And the football isn't even the most important one. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And trust me, it gets pretty ugly. So let's start there. This is the part that gets the most attention and creates the least value. The actual football. In the old 32-team format, 8 groups of 4 teams. 2 go through. 1 bad result, and you're on a plane home. Every match meant something. In 2026, there are 12 groups of 4 teams. But now 3 teams advance from every group instead of 2. That means 75% of all teams at the World Cup go through to the knockout rounds. Let that sink in. 3 out of every 4 teams that show up to the World Cup go through. Now you might be wondering, so what? More teams advancing means more exciting knockouts, right? Wrong. Because FIFA also introduced a third-place wildcard system. The best 8 third-place finishers across all 12 groups also advance, which means a team can mathematically benefit from not winning their group. Not winning means a potentially easier draw in the round of 32. So FIFA didn't just dilute the group stage. They gave teams a financial and tactical incentive to lose games on purpose. The last time we saw an expansion like this, 1998, from 24 to 32 teams, the number of dead rubber group matches nearly doubled. Games where both teams had already qualified and had nothing left to play for. In 2026, we didn't add 8 teams. We added 16, all at once. So if you're wondering why the group stage in 2026 might feel flat, why the games feel like preseason friendlies with flags on the side, well, that's because mathematically, a lot of them basically are. But here's where it actually gets worse than you think. Distance. The 2026 World Cup spans the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The venues stretch from Vancouver on the west coast of Canada to Miami at the bottom of Florida, from Guadalajara in central Mexico to New York City. That is a playing surface roughly 8,000 kilometers wide. To put that in context, the entire 2022 World Cup in Qatar was played inside a country smaller than the state of Connecticut. Teams could travel between stadiums in 20 minutes. In 2026, some teams will take 5-hour flights between group stage games. FIFA's own sports science guidelines recommend at least 72 hours of recovery between competitive matches. The group stage schedule gives teams 72 hours, minus the travel, minus the time zone changes, minus the altitude differences between venues like Denver, which sits at 1,600 meters above sea level, the same altitude that caused serious physical distress for players of the 1986 World Cup. And which teams does this hurt the most? The ones with the highest physical demands. The pressing teams. The high-intensity systems. Germany, England, Brazil. The teams you actually want to see in the final. Because you know which teams aren't affected by fatigue and travel? The ones who had nothing to lose in the group stage anyway. The ones already sitting back and absorbing pressure. The ones who qualified for the first time and are just happy to be there. The format doesn't just add weaker teams to the tournament. It physically drains the stronger ones to close the gap. So now let's get to the part FIFA actually cares about. The part that has been paying for all of this. The broadcast deal. In 2018, FIFA's total revenue for the Russia World Cup was $6.4 billion. In 2022, Qatar generated $7.5 billion. And the projected revenue for 2026 is between $11 and $14 billion. And that jump isn't because the football got better. It's because 48 teams means 16 more national federations whose countries are now buying broadcast rights. 16 more markets that didn't care about a World Cup they weren't in are now tuning in. 16 more sets of commercial sponsors. 16 more kit deals. 16 more fan travel packages. FIFA didn't expand the tournament because they loved football. They expanded it because they did the maths. Every additional team added to the World Cup is worth roughly $200 to $400 million in incremental broadcast and sponsorship revenue. Across 16 new teams, that's potentially $6 billion in new money per cycle. And the efficiency underneath, that is what really matters. Because FIFA's costs don't scale with the number of teams. The stadiums, the infrastructure, the host country investment, that's all paid for by the host. FIFA carries the rights. FIFA collects the revenue. FIFA keeps the margin. The host nations pay the bills. FIFA banks the profit. Gianni Infantino, FIFA's president, said in 2017, the year the 48-team format was announced, that the expansion would generate an additional $1 billion in revenue per World Cup. Translated out of corporate speak, the president of World Football told a room full of executives that he was going to water down the product to squeeze out an extra $1 billion, and nobody was going to stop him. And nobody did. But here's the part of this story that traditional football media isn't covering. Because we've been focused on the teams, the venues, the fixtures. Nobody has been talking about what FIFA actually changed to make all of this possible. In 2016, FIFA's Congress voted to approve the 48-team format. The vote passed 201 to 5. 201 member associations voted yes. And 170 of those 201 associations have never won a World Cup game in their history, which tells you everything you need to know about why the vote went the way it did. Because FIFA doesn't just run the World Cup. FIFA also governs all 211 member associations. Every one of those associations receives FIFA development funding, infrastructure grants, coaching programs, financial support. A senior football administrator from a smaller nation told reporters in 2018, on condition of anonymity, that the message from FIFA was clear. The expansion benefits everyone, and everyone understood what a no vote would mean for their development funding. So FIFA didn't just rewrite the format of the tournament. They engineered the vote that approved it. 201 to 5. The 5 who voted no haven't been publicly named. And the 201 who voted yes got exactly what they were promised. So let's go back to the question from the beginning. Who is actually paying for all of this? The answer is still you. Because if you're buying a ticket to the 2026 World Cup, you're paying record prices. Average group stage tickets are priced between $200 and $700. For games that may feature teams with nothing to play for in the third match of a group neither side can be eliminated from. And if you're watching from home, you're sitting through more commercial breaks across more games with more broadcast hours than any World Cup in history. Your attention is the product. Your 4 weeks of passion every 4 years is what those $14 billion broadcast deals are being sold on. And if you're a fan of one of the traditional powerhouses, Brazil, Germany, France, Argentina, Spain, you're watching your team get ground down by a format specifically designed to let more teams through while physically exhausting the ones expected to win. Football journalist Gabriele Marcotti put it plainly. The 48-team World Cup is not for the fans of the sport. It is for the administrators of the sport. Because the fans of the sport were never really the customer. They were always the product. Here's the corrected version of the 2026 World Cup. It's 3 products stacked together. A diluted group stage where 75% of teams advance, and losing has strategic value. A logistical nightmare spanning 8,000 kilometers that physically destroys the teams you actually want to see in the final. And a broadcast and commercial machine generating $14 billion in revenue for an organization that paid nothing for the stadiums it's using. We've seen this before. Every time FIFA has expanded the World Cup, they've told us it was for the good of the global game. And every time, the global game got slightly worse and FIFA got significantly richer. 1982 expanded to 24 teams. The final finished 0-0 after extra time. 1998 expanded to 32 teams. The final featured a Ronaldo who'd had a seizure hours before kickoff and a Brazil side that looked like they didn't want to be there. 2026 expanded to 48 teams. The format is set. The vote has passed. The broadcast deals are signed. And you're going to watch it anyway. Because that's what FIFA is counting on. They know you love football more than you hate what they've done to it. And that's the one thing about this sport that never changes. So when you sit down for that 2026 final, tired, slightly disappointed, watching two exhausted teams play out 90 cautious minutes decided by a penalty, just remember, FIFA told you this was the greatest World Cup ever made. The data said something different. And the data was there the whole time.